Hello and welcome to the Trail Network podcast. We're so happy you're here with us. I'm Leah Yingling. I'm joined by Rachel Drake and Hilary Yang, and we are a few days removed from the Western States 100, and I think we all consumed or participated in that in a variety of ways. So I think we'll largely dive into what went down there this weekend. How are you guys doing?
Good. Oh my gosh. I don't know what day it is. Like, genuinely, it all feels like a blur. But yeah, good. I mean, it's sort of fun to come up for air and like look at it all now that it's done. I always feel a little sad when it's done. Do you
I
feel
know.
that?
Yeah, it's like that feeling you get when you're little and it's Christmas Day and then it's December 26th all of a sudden and you're like, well, now what? But I guess the answer to
Totally.
that question is, well, Hardrock is now what? But at the same time, I don't know, Western States feels a little different.
Yeah, like halfway through the day, I actually had that thought. I was like, oh, we're halfway done already.
Yeah.
And like, part of me was not sad about that because it's always so busy and so stressful. But the other part of me was like, oh, it goes by so fast, you know?
It really does.
Yeah.
You, Hillary and Leah, you guys should just each chat about what your roles were there. And I wasn't at Western States this year for the first time and since 2019, and
We missed you,
I
Rach.
was so
That's a long
sad.
time.
It was
Yeah.
really, it's just been such a staple on the calendar, and obviously it was really fun following from afar and getting more of a bird's eye view of what was going on in both the men's and the women's races, but. Um, yeah, I don't know who wants to start. Hillary, I feel like I know less about like your what your day was like. I know you were all over the place, but I'm just curious to hear like yeah, what your day was like there.
What it was like. Well, why don't I tell you what my week was like? Because it was all really busy. um, we were in Vancouver doing Broken Arrow for my grandma's 90th birthday, which was awesome. And like everybody came for her birthday from like all over, super fun. And then we flew into San Francisco on Monday morning and drove over to Tahoe because I was leading a group run for Arc'teryx that was sort of kicking off the TrailCon stuff. And it was like interesting as we were rolling in through the Donner Pass, there was these like ominous black clouds. And then it started like pouring rain. And it was like a short thunderstorm, but I like looked at Billy and I was like, yeah, those clouds don't look awesome. And by the time we got to Tahoe, they were just like hovering over the mountains there. And like we started our run, like I actually started my watch and we had like the group photo and, you know, yay, off we go. And big turnout, like 100 people. It was awesome. And then like lightning started to hit the peaks around us and they just like pulled the plug. They're like, no, we just like hit our quota for like safety. And it was so funny. It was so sad. You got all these runners and we're all like ready to go. And it's just like, wah, wah. So anyways, sort of, you know, the weather was definitely like a bit temperamental when we got in, but Tuesday I like was launching into interviews and stuff for the documentary that I'm working on. And we'd like lined up all the athletes because we knew they'd be busy later on in the week. And so, yeah,
Very
just like
considerate of you.
trying to, well, and a lot of them just go on like full
Mm.
on lockdown. So just trying to like bang these things out and like sit down with everybody and all that stuff. And so it's just like busy because you're sort of going and then you're thinking of the next one. And I was like prepping all the questions and all the things we needed to like get out of each interview.
How
And
many athletes did you have on your kind of roster for the
we
project?
were following four, and then we also are diving into like more of the like backstory of the race. And so it's sort of like there's interviews from present day and past day happening, and everyone's in town for Western States. So you're trying to like maximize all that stuff. So it was like a lot of schedules. And yeah, my co-director, Carrie, and I were just sort of like go time on everything. And then same thing on Wednesday, just like a whole bunch more interviews. And then we also, I was on a panel for TrailCon for like a creatives panel, which was really cool. Got to see like a few of the talks on Wednesday. I tried to poke my head in. And then we also like launched the Here for the Women's Race t-shirts, which was fun. And we also hosted a women's lunch on Wednesday. And that was awesome. It was like co-hosted with Feisty Media, and they're like a female media company that I'd never heard of, but they're amazing. And we did a lunch for like 100 women, and it was like a networking event.
That's
And
so
we did it
cool.
like speed dating style, and like everyone sat had a number and they like sat in a table and you had to go around and meet everyone. And then we like had everyone go and introduce someone to someone else and like just like a mingler. And it was so fun. And all week, people kept coming up to me. Women kept coming up to me and being like, because of that event, like I now know, like I recognize a bunch of women and like we say hi and like I can't remember their names, but I know them. And like it was just sort of a fun thing. It was really cool, actually.
Great community building.
Yeah. Yeah. And really cool because that was like the 1-year anniversary of like the Here for the Women's race. And so just to like bring it full circle and just like build and keep sort of figuring out how to just like connect more women was really cool. So we had that. And then Corinne Malcolm and I were slinging t-shirts and those were flying and we were sold out by like Thursday night for the new t-shirts I made for this year, the purple ones.
They're awesome.
Super fun. Yeah. I was like, what is the shirt I want to wear? I want to wear a boxy crop. Yeah. I don't want to wear like a long shirt. So yeah, then those will be available on our website in a couple of days. We're just like trying to source more t-shirts since we went through all our purple t-shirts, but that was super fun. And then then it was like Western State stuff, so it was sort of like pivoting to all of that. And this is the 4th year I've done the like official social media coverage and photography for the race, and so it's sort of like making sure all the schedules are out and then like all the posts leading up to the race and the briefing and all that. And then that night was when I gathered like the film crew and I did the briefing for the whole documentary film crew because we had 3 different filmmakers out there following the 4 athletes. So did all that. And then I did the briefing for the social media team. And that was also, it was just like so many moving pieces. It was really interesting. I felt like I'd put one hat on and then another hat and then I put the other hat back on. But super fun to just.
What do you think was like the hardest hat to wear all week long?
I think the documentary, because without knowing how it would play out, like the social media and the photography and following the race, like, yeah, people might be going a little faster than you think, but like more or less they're going kind of what you think as far as like staying ahead of them. But with the like runners, you just don't know how their days are going to play out. And so that was like, if plan A goes well, then here's what we're all going to do. And if plan B happens, then you hang back and you catch them and then you go ahead to make sure we don't miss them. And like, that's where it becomes a little bit of a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions around that because we saw that there was initially going to be a race that was focused, or a documentary that was focused on the men's field this year at Western States. And due to the fact that we had a lot of like highlighted figures not starting the race, it produced challenges there. When you're on a documentary team like you are, how do you plan for people DNFing, DNSing, or perhaps like you mentioned, not quite having the day that they initially planned on and perhaps falling back? Because that seems like a lot of logistics to me and a lot of planning for the vision that like might not get met one way or another.
Totally. I mean, I think, yeah, it's super interesting. And obviously like we, knew about the men's film happening and it was certainly like interesting to see that unfold and like super sad because I was excited about the story and it was going to be just this historic year for men, with some of these storylines. So you never want to see that like not happen. I have to say like the women's field held up really well, leading up to the race. There just like wasn't a lot of attrition, which I was really relieved by. And I don't know what we would have done if people had dropped out before the race. I think that would be an interesting thing because it's different when it happens during the race. And we actually did deal with that. Like 2 of our 4 athletes didn't finish this year. And so it was sort of interesting to see the days unfold and to sort of figure out what the story is. But I also think it's just like part of the sport now is it's like we're pushing so hard and we saw a lot of people blow up out there. And we can get into that more, but like, it's sort of like a marker of where we are in the sport in some ways, right? Like totally. It's not for lack of effort. It's not for lack of caring. It's not for lack of trying to get to the start line. If anything, it's probably overdoing it, Yeah. So that's super fascinating. But yeah, it was definitely like going into the race, just like a whole bunch of question marks. And then I will say like, following the race, it's always my favorite thing to go up to the escarpment in the morning and just like that greeting the day up there and like getting the sunrise and everybody being up there. And this year going up there, I've never seen so many people hiking up. Like it was like a train of headlamps up the mountain at 4 a.m., which I think is like pretty awesome how many people want to get up early and just be part of it all.
was cool
It
to
was
see
insane.
how Hoka I think for the first time they paid for anyone who wanted to take the tram
gondola
up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the gondola up part way. So I know Alex Lore, has been working really hard to make those sorts of things happen. And that was really cool to see, just to make it more accessible.
It was a game changer. And what was really interesting were still like the number of people who got up there. So what I did that morning is I hiked up to the pitch right above the tram where it's like the steepest
The
section of the
escarpment. That's
escarpment.
actually called the escarpment.
Oh, that's cool.
That section. Yeah.
That's
The
cool.
whole
So
thing is not called the escarpment. It's just like, this is something I've learned on my journey.
that's
That
cool.
section is the
'Cause,
escarpment.
yeah, I knew if I went all the way up to the top, I wasn't going to be able to like boogie down in time fast enough for Mike to execute on his day. So I was like, okay, cool. I like to see people kind of suffering early on at that spot anyhow. So I'll go plant myself there. But what was interesting was the number of people who would take the tram up and like have no idea still what that hike from the tram up to the Emigrant Pass is like, because that's not an easy hike, especially when you encounter that very loose, steep section up the escarpment there. It's tough, and like people aren't exactly wearing appropriate shoes if it's their first time up there. So that was interesting because I do feel like it was the most crowded it's ever been there, it was really cool to see all the people up there. But I was curious of like, yeah, how prepared some people were as they were going up there and being like, some people would come up and say like, is that where the racers go? They go up that right there. And I'm like,
they're like,
they'll have a bit of appreciation.
But yeah. I was happy with like the crowd control up in that space. Like when the leaders started coming through, there was somebody probably affiliated with the race that was like, get out of the way, give them the trail. Because I was a bit concerned about people making their way back down to the tram or even like making their way up to the pass, of like how that would end up with the congregations.
It was fun. It was really cool. Yeah. Like Hoka opening the tram was like awesome. They had a little aid station set up outside of the tram for like people that were hiking up to get a coffee and a pastry on their way up, which was really sweet.
Nice.
Really just thoughtful. And yeah, like it was interesting being up there because I feel like, every year there's more people, and I always have my like spot I go to that's like just off the side of the top and like a little quieter. And this was the first year that spillover came over the top, and I was like, no, there goes my shot. But at the same time, it's just sort of like, it's part of it. It's like, there was just so many people up there. So yeah, it was cool. I definitely like, I'd love to chat with someone that ran it to see how they felt about that section, but everyone seemed really stoked. Like, just how can you not be when you have that many people up there? But it was like, cool. Yeah, tons of great energy.
Leah, I'm curious what it was like for you kind of being the first year in the last, I guess, 3 years that you weren't racing. So like first not racing and then kind of like what your role was and how that played out.
Yeah, I think if anyone's listened to me over the last couple of years, I'm like the queen of being fickle, where the first year I ran Western States, I was like 1 and done. And then the second year I was like, okay, 2 and done. And then last year after doing further, I was like, there's no way I'm lining up for Western States. And then I felt reasonable and I was like, okay, I'll give this a shot. But
it was your fastest one.
I know, which is really cool. And this year, gosh, I was definitely involved in a different capacity. And I didn't think I would have FOMO for not racing, but I had so much FOMO. And like, I have never wanted to go back to Western States more than after this year. Like, this is the most inspired I am to go back to Western States, which is funny because that's not me. I'm like, I make up my mind the year prior and whatever. But yeah, I always change my mind, I guess. But it was
last year you said you weren't going to do it again. So that's funny.
Yeah, just trust nothing I say, honestly.
What I am curious, like what has you feeling so inspired? Is it someone in particular? Is it seeing it from a new lens? Like, what do you think that's coming from?
Yeah, I think seeing a very different race play out this year, it was almost, I've been telling people, Western States was almost getting prescriptive the last couple years. Like every year I've raced it was almost like you could follow this rule book, this guidebook of what you need to do, how you need to execute. And if you do X, Y, and Z, you will have a good outcome. And like, I've gone on the record in the past being like, like I know what I need to do to get top 10 at Western States. And like last year was the first time that was like, okay, if I need to get top 10 at Western States again, like I need to up my training or change one of those variables to make it a little bit easier, because I was on the brink of that top 10 last year and it felt kind of difficult to get in there. This year just seemed so cool from a racing and controllable and variables perspective, from the way that people raced to the heat to having to manage. It was just like the most unpredicted outcome that I thought, which made it really exciting, really interesting. So I think it was the visibility into a race being a lot less prescriptive and a more like risky approach, I would say, which was cool to just visualize like yourself participating in a race like that.
Quick break to thank Osprey for sponsoring this episode of the show. Osprey has been a leading maker of premium outdoor backpacks and bags for over 50 years. There are many reasons I turned to Osprey, but one is because of their pillars of sourcing sustainable materials. By incorporating recycled and Blue Sign approved materials into their products, they're helping to keep harmful chemicals out of our environment. Osprey has eliminated PFAS-based durable water repellent in 100% of their textile products, and as of fall 2024, 100% of Osprey's products have 100% recycled content in the lining fabric, and 99% of Osprey's products have 100% recycled content in the main body fabric. Osprey continues to reduce environmental impacts and produce more sustainably designed products every year. This is the type of company I want to support, and I know you do too. Learn more at osprey.com. Now back to the show.
Just sort of playing a little bit closer to the line of what's possible.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and you kind of had to, I felt like this year. Like, I mean, to an extent, I guess, because we did see a lot of people blow up early in the race. Like, I feel like Michigan Bluff was this like real crux point for a lot of people.
Yes.
That's where a lot of the drops were. And I think it's just like going out that hard and going into the canyons and then having the heat. And if you're already sort of pushing like redlining and you get like nauseous and just like everything just goes south, you know?
Totally.
And that was wild to see. I have to say, it was fun seeing Coop and his like CTS setup at the aid stations, because they had these kiddie pools there and they filled them full of ice and water, and their athletes would just come in and like literally just like dunk in the pool and lay there for a minute, which must have been really cold. But like it was interesting because like his athletes did really well, and I wonder if that was like a good like real like cool the core down.
Totally. Like it's that full body cooling, but just doesn't look practical for anybody that doesn't have a setup like that. Like I was thinking about the manpower it probably took to fill an entire kiddie pool in Michigan Bluff. Like Michigan Bluff's one of the, it's not remote, but it's not easy to get your whole setup down there. So that was impressive.
Yeah. I'm like, how many bags of ice did that take? We had 2 kiddie pools full of ice.
But if you had enough athletes coming through that you can just kind of set it up and maintain it, and it's worth it.
Totally.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah. I was telling Mike today, something we saw a lot less of this year were like ice vests. I think due to like the different crew restrictions on like Bath Road and like less crewing allowed going up to Green Gate as well, which is normally the spots where we see ice vests happen.
Those were the key spots. Yeah. And
so I think like the opportunity for athletes to cool the way they did in Michigan Bluff at like Coop's setup was probably necessary. If you're not going to use an ice vest, that's like not the next best thing. It's a better thing.
Yeah. It was interesting to see the heat techniques and just like the day play out. And I felt like trying to stay one step ahead of the runners every year gets harder for me. Like it's getting from the escarpment over to Robinson was the most stressful this year that it's been. And like, I say that every year and then I mean it every year. And then it gets worse the next year. And it was like, oh my gosh, we got stuck behind the bus on the shuttle and we were supposed to be able to park right up at the aid station because we're like internal media, but the buses don't care. No. And it was like probably 20 minutes before the bus moved and we were just sitting there. And I was like crawling out of my skin because it was like course record pace for M1 was like approaching, minutes away. And it's like just in a part, and you can't even abandon your vehicle because at some point they're going to move. So you're just like, there was just so many people that wanted to be up there.
It was wild experiencing it from the other side. Like Mike has always told me what it's like up at Robinson Flat and what it's like commuting around the course that day. And he's like, we will not have a single down minute. I'm like, okay. But like we seriously did not, especially like we went up to the escarpment and then he missed the tram by like 10 seconds. I took the tram down though, which was lovely for me. And then he was like at the doors as it was closing and I was like, no.
No.
So then
Oh my gosh.
he ran all the way down, but then we get down and it's like the drive from.
Wait, how much longer did it take him to run down than for you?
Probably another like 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay.
And I think he was
that
hauling.
Sucks so bad for him.
I know. And then we get to the base and we're like, we got to go because it's almost close to a 2.5 hour drive out to Robinson Flat. But like, and I don't love that drive. And I did all the driving this year so he could do editing of his photos while he drove, which was a huge help. But then we left out.
Which is also the worst because you get car sick going up there. Like, but that's a long drive.
Long drive. So,
and you guys were following Caleb, so you didn't have much time. Like, I'm really amazed that you actually saw him at Robinson Flat after also seeing him on the escarpment.
It was wild. Like, I'm so impressed by like how we executed the day. I did document some of like capturing Mike as he documented the day on his little like DJI Osmo, and it was really cool to see because like we got to so many places, and then we also had special privileges to go out to Devil's Thumb. And then we did Michigan Bluff and then Forest Hill and then the river, Pointed Rocks and the finish. But we were like priding ourselves on like no mistakes were made for a long time there. And then at Devil's Thumb, things just started to unravel. Like Mike made a memory card mistake. By the time we hit Michigan Bluff, I had left his laptop there, which he needed. And
I think I saw that text. Like, can someone bring Mike's laptop to the finish?
And like, here I am bragging. Like, we're like bragging to each other about like how good we're doing. And then all this stuff starts falling apart. And I'm like, oh God, this is going to be a nightmare.
Oh, no. Yeah, I forgot. It's sort of interesting to hear it through your eyes, Leah, because my only experience with this course is like hauling ass just to get around it. And like, it's so much work from that perspective. But it's funny to hear your perspective because when you're running it, obviously it's like a totally different type of work and you're working really hard, but you sort of maybe don't realize how hard it is to like,
you absolutely do not. And it's honestly easier just running it and executing it and being taken care of and not having to worry about getting from point A to point B and all the logistics. Hilary, you should talk about like just how the media landscape has changed at Western States over the years and just like crowds and crowd control and parking, because I do think that was all pretty shocking to me with like, I've heard Mike describe it, but then experiencing it myself, and we didn't have too many issues with it, but I could see in future years, just like the explosion of Western States, definitely leading to some challenges from that respect.
Yeah, I mean, this year they gave out the most media passes ever, like 184, I think. And last year we were maybe at like 120. So like year over year growth is massive. And, like they knew that going into it, but still when you're actually out there and it's like each of those people represents a vehicle or a couple vehicles and then like all the crew stuff, but like just the amount of people trying to get to these places on these windy roads and the like traffic jams and the volunteers trying to find people like parking for people. Like it's just every year it's like chaotic, and then they change the system and you think you kind of know it, and then all of a sudden it's changed again. Like Forest Hill this year, I parked like 1.5 miles away. I couldn't find anything. It was just like, which I mean, it's sort of like, I don't want to be like too salty about it. Like I'm trying to be careful because like, on from my perspective, it makes things harder to get around, but it's also like so many people that want to be part of this race, and like, it's really cool that they get to. And like, for some people, it's like, what's going to inspire them to like sign up for something or, like so I'm trying to be like, kind of just, it is what it is, right? Like the growth is part of the sport in general. And then Western States is just like the pinnacle of all that. And Forest Hill was fun because like there's so many like activations and like groups that show up and sort of have coordinated things, and like all the different like goo and all the energy stuff, like they've all got their thing going. And so from a like spectator standpoint, it's super fun. But yeah, from a like getting around the course and media standpoint, there was so many times where we would just like have someone in our like car drop everyone else off and then try to like find parking. Because it was just like, you're going to be another 15 minutes and M1 is due in 6 minutes according to course record pace. And you're like, gotta go.
I'm so curious how the media passes work, because I've heard for UTMB, it's extremely expensive to get a media pass and they're limited. Is Western States, are the media passes expensive? Are they hard to get? Do they have limitations on them?
And right now they're free.
Okay.
And I don't know, I'm not like privy to those conversations, but I do think there's always a tipping point at which growth has to sort of be mitigated. And I don't know what that is. But I do know like there was a lot of like thoughtful conversations around like how media were managed this year. And it'd be interesting to see like how everyone feels that went. Having been at UTMB and shot UTMB a couple times, I find it a very unpleasant race to photograph. And I really don't enjoy it because the way they have like the tiered paid system, it's like the pay to play model. And if you're not paying to play, then you're stuck in like the shittiest corner where you can't see anything.
So there's different tiers of like, if you pay the highest amount, you can get all access, or
you get that prime shot behind the finish line. But they have bouncers there that will literally pull you out by the scruff of your neck if you're in the wrong one, which has happened to me. I have been physically escorted out of an area that I thought I was allowed to be in that apparently I wasn't. So,
wow.
Yeah. I think what was like new or bigger to me this year, and I think Hilary, we talked about it a little bit offline the other day, was just like for one brand, for example, or like, I mean, there's so many brands, like every man in the top 10 had a different sponsor. So if you could imagine, that means that's
such a cool stat.
It's very cool. That means
not one was Hoka, right?
Not on the men's side, yeah.
Which is crazy because they have 4 men who were favorites to win.
Yes, that's wild. That's absolutely wild.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
But then you also think about those 10 different brands having photographers, videographers. That's not just 2 media people. That might be like 2 to 10, frankly. And you think about that growth with follow cams and all the follow cam situations for each of those runners. And like, that's 100 people. And like, that's 100 people plus probably if you then consider that across the women's field too. So I think that was a pretty distinct difference, probably from like even like 3 years ago when I ran my first Western States, of like the number of people just like following one athlete down, let's say Forest Hill Road. That was stark.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And it's like, you multiply that by like you said, one brand might have a different media person for each athlete that they have out there. Right? Like it just starts to get to be a crazy number of people that are following. And sometimes 2, depending on if they have like an A team and a B team. And like, you know, you're trying to get to like,
and then it makes you think about more like the independent media folks who are getting their upstart in the sport and are just out there trying to like document the day. And like, that's a very different experience too. So yeah, you almost have those like pros and cons as the media landscape grows. Like, how do you balance the growth with also like, the creative autonomy of like the different types of sectors of the media coverage?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I was really bummed I couldn't go down to the river this year. And it was something, so like on my side, we sort of like prioritized more video for Western States this year rather than photo. And so I was the only photographer. And then we had a videographer doing like short form reels. And it was like, which is wild because UTMB has like 15 people that do my job. And it's like, and I'm posting and editing and like doing all the things while we're going. But anyways, I got to Forest Hill and I just realized like I couldn't go down to the river because I wouldn't see the women at Forest Hill if I did. And then I would have to leave the river to go to the finish line before the women got there. And I just like had this moral quandary where I was like, oh my God, like I really like, I love going down to the river, and Forest Hill is like a little bit challenging. Like it's not my favorite to shoot, but it was also like, I think just an interesting thing of just like, following the women's race well means like dedicating resources to the women's race. And it's really, you can't just sort of like cover everything and make it work. And like, I mean, I just made sacrifices as far as like where I went. But as far as like the conversation we constantly have around like women's media coverage, I think so much of it is because they just like don't really take into account how you need like dedicated people
Totally.
for it, you know?
Even I would argue even more so than for the men's race, specifically because it's logistically more challenging to follow the women's race.
Yeah.
Having crewed both my husband Tyler Green, who is often at the front of the men's race, and then also crewing Keely Henninger a few years, who was often at the front of the women's race. The people supporting and following the women are bogged down by all the men, including like the men, you know, like the top 30 men who are like their crews are getting there early, and like the traffic and the logistics is a lot more difficult for following
That's
the
such a
front of
good
the women's
point,
race.
Rachel. Yeah.
Yeah, because you think about it, like if you're following the lead runner, the top 5, you're combating usually 5. By the time you're hitting the river, you're there with 5 crews, because the rest of the men's field, 5 through 10 or 5 through 15, still up in Forest Hill, so you don't have to. But then when you're in the women's meat of it, like I was trying to get to the river, and there's a shuttle system to go down to the river. I've never been down to the river, and I was really excited to go there. It was 100 degrees also at the river, which was
I heard that.
And she's pregnant.
and I'm like close to 8 months pregnant. And Mike was like, I need to get some photos out in the car here. Let me edit for a while. So then all of Caleb's crew went down on like the first shuttle, and they made impeccable timing. And then we're in the car editing photos. And then once Mike's ready,
Because they didn't have to wait in line. They didn't have to wait to park because he's like winning the race.
Totally. And then once Mike is done with his editing of photos, I like glance outside, and I was like, that shuttle line is very long. That's like, it looked like 4 shuttles worth of people, and the shuttles were running every like 20 to 30 minutes. And I'm like, that's going to be an hour and a half of standing in 100-degree heat. And Mike had an e-bike. He's never ridden an e-bike before. He's like,
he's like, yes, race day. This is what I'm going to learn.
And I was like, okay, you do that. It's more important that you get down to the river than me. I'm just like extra crew. And I'm like, yeah, telling Caleb,
I'll be here in the air conditioning.
well, and then I'm like, I'll just go get in line and see how this works. And I end up next to Ryan Montgomery's crew, and we're standing there for a while, and they're like, I think you should.
And Ryan's in like top 10.
Yeah.
Too.
And I'm like,
so not even far back.
I was like, I don't think anybody in this line is going to make it. Then eventually I'm like standing in the heat long enough. I was like, I just want some shade. So I go talk to the guy in the front. I was like, hey, do you mind if I stand in the shade? I'm 8 months pregnant. Like, really need to get down the river. He's like, who are you crewing? I was like, M1. And he's like, M1. I was like, yeah. He's like, how do you know him? And I was like, how do I know him?
He's
like,
my best friend.
I said, he's my best friend. And then he's like, okay. He's like, we'll see if we can get you on the next shuttle here. And I was like, thank God. But
Oh my God.
had I not like kind of made my special priority call there of like, I can't stand in this heat any longer, and went to the front, like there was no way I was making it. And I'm very grateful for Ryan's mom and Ryan's sister to give me the courage to go to the front of the line to ask for that, because I was going to just be complacent back there and be like, oh, okay, this is a bad
Did
day.
Ryan's family make it down? Do you know?
I think they made it down for him, I think, but they were probably like cutting it very close.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that shuttle was slow. Our film crew got stuck in it for like an hour and a half too, and it was like, yeah, it makes
it was last year
tough
too.
day tougher for sure.
Totally.
Yeah. Because
Oh my
I
gosh,
was supposed
Leah.
to have someone down there and they didn't make it. And then our friend from Osprey, Vince, he was down there, and I think he had an e-bike. I think that's how he made it down. Yeah.
Watch next year. There's going to be like a whole fleet.
I know. I mean, it's so funny. I think as the athletes optimize their cooling techniques and their training and their heat training and their nutrition, it's also the spectators and the crews and the pacers. Everyone is having to level up their game. Like
everyone is optimizing.
It's an elite sport, just crewing, and
it was wild.
Following with media.
Yeah, like we talked about the media landscape exploding. Like crews are also expanding, and like I think they should be regulated in some degree in the future with like how big they're getting. And I'm almost thinking like similar to UTMB, how there's like a car pass for each crew. Maybe you have one car pass for crew A, one for crew B, and like you need to fit your crew in those cars. We'll probably end up seeing like 14 passenger vans then for crews, but
right. but that would actually be good. That's very reasonable to just say,
yeah,
that's
like
still
2 cars
per team, and then they're often converging at Forest Hill.
Yeah, and just like seeing how dialed the crews were, like all of Caleb's stops were like 30 to 45 seconds, like max, and seeing at like you need to be firing on all cylinders. You need one person doing everybody has their own task, and that was just it's what it needs to be if you want to be at the front and have as minimal stop time as possible. I think Chris Myers ended up with like a cumulative 11 minutes of stop time, which is so impressive.
Wow.
Over 22 aid stations or whatever it is.
Crazy.
Shout out to Chris Myers. Like, what a insanely inspiring performance.
The snorkel, you guys?
Man,
did you see the river?
Yeah.
It was so cool.
Yeah, he was
Really
like
cool.
going hard, but I love that he just like took a few minutes to like not take himself so seriously without losing time.
Yeah.
But just like showed a bit of personality. That was really fun.
I had no idea in the moment what he was doing. And somebody on Caleb's crew was like, did you see like Chris's goggles? And I was like, yeah, I think he's got pretty bad vision. I don't
Clearly it was strategic.
And then eventually I meet back up with Mike and he's like, do you see Chris snorkel across? I was like, those are the goggles. Oh. I thought they meant like rec specs. And I was like, just imagining Chris out there running in rec specs.
Oh, funny.
Man.
It was pretty
Going back
brilliant.
to Leah, what you were saying before about like you're feeling so inspired, and a lot of it was just kind of the unpredictable year we had this year. Like, I think in the past few years, we've always had just like an obvious front runner, like, yeah, Jim's probably going to win. Yeah, Courtney's probably going to win. Katie's probably going to win. Like, barring anything crazy, you know, something crazy can always happen. But this year, I feel like as a spectator and a fan of the sport, it was my favorite year ever because we didn't have that like I mean, I'm sure it's it's exciting for Jim and Katie and Courtney to win, but it's like way more fun when you're like, I don't know who's gonna win.
Yeah, like looking at the women's field. I mean, even last week when we were trying to like prognosticate about it, like it was so hard. And I don't think any of us I know none of us picked Abby to win.
No.
We all love Abby and we're all like thrilled for her. But that just like shows how deep the field is that wasn't on our radar. And like, that was freaking cool to watch, you know?
It was so cool. And I think that's part of the reason I think this year would have been fun to participate is like, it was
anything is possible.
Anything is possible. And I think something I've lamented in recent years is every big 100 miler I've done, either Katie or Courtney is doing it at that time. So not that the writing's on the wall, but it's like one of them is probably going to win. And this year it would have been really cool going into it being like, it's anybody's ball game and it's whoever is like appropriately risky, paces it smart, controls all the things and just knocks it out of the park. And to see Abby almost, I think she led like not wire to wire by any means, but like she was in the mix all day long. And that was so cool to see. And just like picture yourself in a similar scenario in a race. Like I see Abby going for it. Like that inspires me to do the same in like a future race.
Yeah. Same. And like there was no guarantee that she was going to stick it either. And she knew that too.
Yeah.
And same with Caleb. Like Caleb was throwing up the morning of the race. He was throwing up like after Robinson Flat, I think. Like hearing his post-race recap, I just listened to it on single track and I was like, whoa. Like if I had any of those things happen, I probably would have been like, this isn't good. But he just kept pushing.
I think those are the inspiring moments to have in races. I think I was talking to a few people who had tough days out there. And I was like, those types of races where like you have something go wrong, you troubleshoot it, your body's back in it, gives you enough inspiration for future race to be like, I can turn things around. I can be in it. I can like my all is not lost if one of those things happens. And I think that was really cool to see too. Like somebody like Ida Nielsen who put herself up in the lead early on as well. And like when she crossed that finish line, like she looked completely wiped. And I like,
but she went for it.
Like, which was so cool,
so inspiring.
At the award ceremony in the morning, like she had to lay down on the grass because she was like super nauseous and dizzy still. And like same with Chris Myers, he was like at the front.
Didn't he have to sit on the table?
Well, yeah, and like he started like weaving like he was gonna pass out, and Billy actually grabbed him from the hips from the behind and propped him up on the. It was so funny. It's like literally holding him up by his shirt, like. But it just shows how like they gave everything, like. you know, it really was one of those efforts. And
Oh, this was cool too. I think it was the guy who missed the finish. He was 2 minutes after the official finish. And
Najir.
yeah, Mike posted a photo of him on Instagram, and Najir's son responded on in the comments and said that he was 45 minutes like behind cutoff time at one point. Like he was not going to make the cutoff, and he ended up fighting and clawing his way back to be within 2 minutes by the finish line. He ended up missing the official finish at the finish line, but being 45 minutes back and then being able to like get 43 minutes off of that.
Well, and you know that they just were you at the award ceremony, Leah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the fact that they gave him that they started one of the sponsors. It's actually James Bonet, who's been in the sport for a long time, but they're sponsoring they're calling it the Golden Hour Runner for next year, and they're giving a spot to the first person who misses the cutoff, like the first.
That's so
like the
cool.
First, I don't want to say DNF because they finished, but you know what I mean, like the first past official 30-hour finisher. And so they gave it to him, and it's like it was really cute. They had like a golden hour ticket that they gave him, and you know he gets to come back next year and run it again. And it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it, because it's like that's awesome. Like that is the spirit of our sport, and to hear that he like made up so much time, I'm sure he learned so much, and to have the chance to come back next year and to do it again is really, really cool.
Yeah, his name is Niraj Egbert.
Niraj.
So
Niraj.
Cool.
Yeah.
It was awesome to see. I mean, Golden Hour, Mike and I had a recap on our like 10-hour drive home from Auburn on Monday. We left Auburn at like 4 p.m. Monday evening. We're like, let's just knock out all the work we have. And like Caleb, we have Find My Friends, and like Caleb looked at our dot on during the day. He's like, I knew you guys were gonna like stick around a little bit. I did not think you'd stick around till 4 p.m. And we ended up getting home at like close to 2 a.m. that night, our time.
Oh my gosh.
Where was I going with? Oh, but we were talking about like the moments that made us emotional and the moments that we cried during the day. And I was like, oh, did you cry during Caleb's finish? And he's like, oh yeah, I was a mess. I'm like taking photos, bawling my eyes out. He's like, and then I turn and look and I see like 2 video cameras like just on me.
Oh, that's amazing. Where can we get that footage?
I need that footage so bad. And then my second time, I got emotional during Caleb's finish, but then my second time was those last like 3 finishers. And it's just impossible not to get emotional watching them come on the track. And you're so filled with joy, but then your heart's also breaking in the next minute for those last finishers who just miss it. But best hour in the sport.
So I find it like excruciating, that last like 15 minutes. Like I want to be there and like enter into their joy, but like goddamn, like it's so hard.
It's so hard.
Pushing so hard.
And you just like, what it took, long. The journey that it took for so many of those people to get there. Like maybe people who've been in the lottery for close to 10 years, they line up there, they get their crew together, their families out there supporting them. And like after the like 2 95 to 100 degree days, they finally make it. And it just looks like the sigh of relief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It's a special
Beautiful.
race. It was fun. I finished my day on the track, just to go back to our days. And I was there till like 11:30 posting all the top women. And you know what was sort of interesting? People cleared out pretty fast after Abby. Like it got sparse really quickly, and I was surprised by that.
Did you notice that, Leah? I noticed that, yeah. And like I personally have like felt that way in recent years too. Like
But Leah finishes. She's like, where's the crowd?
Like, why isn't the track lined? No, just kidding.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of like, I want to not call people out, but call them into like celebrating the women more. It's not that late.
It's not that late. It's
like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock.
Yeah. And then like
crazy.
11 p.m. I think is 18 hours. And all the women finished, I think, under like 18:11. So the top 10 women finished under 18:11. So it's very reasonable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people are still like, I don't know. That's only a few hours after.
Yeah.
Top.
I know.
Yeah.
It was just interesting to me. I thought there'd be, because of all the talk around the women's race, but I think, there was sort of that reminder of like, oh yeah, we still have to make sure we're like showing up and like,
totally.
But anyways, that aside, one of my athletes finished at like 4:15 a.m. And so I was like I tried to sleep for a couple hours because I was on the broadcast. in the morning, and it was like setting alarms every like 15 minutes. You think someone's going to come in like any minute, but in reality, they actually have like still a little bit to go.
Yeah.
But in your head, your math is always
You
like
can't miss it.
overly optimistic.
That's so
But
true.
yeah, and I was on the broadcast for like 5 hours.
Yeah, how did you feel when you got on the broadcast? Because I can definitely empathize with having a full day's work and then hopping on the broadcast and being
and
like,
then trying to talk.
I don't know what.
You guys were both on the broadcast.
I was like, I don't know what type of energy I'm about to bring. I just know
Yeah.
it's not going to be like. I'm going to try my best.
Yeah, it's hard. And Leah, I don't know if you found this, but like when you're out all day on the course, you actually don't follow the race that closely. So I didn't know what people were talking about all day. So in a sense, I was trying to like sort of scrub through and listen and like pick up
Yeah.
some stuff at the finish line, but you're sort of like not quite as in tune with the broadcast flow because you're so in the
100%.
moment.
Yes. And like as I was getting closer to going live, so I was calling M2 through F10, and I like was honestly following mostly the men's race all day, but because of the nature of where I was positioned on the course crew and Caleb. So I actually didn't know a lot of what was happening in the women's race, which is rare for me. I like usually know what's going on back there. And I was getting closer to the live broadcast time. I told Mike, I was like, I'm so nervous. Like, I feel like I don't know anything. He's like, you know plenty. Like, it's up in your head.
A lot, Leah.
He's like, it's up in your head. Just like word vomited out. And I was like, okay, here we go. But I do agree too with like, I think the coverage was very good this year. I mean, we're making so many strides each and every year on it. It is always tough being in the broadcast seat and like trying to have equal coverage when like you are only given so much at times of like cameras on the women's field, on the men's field. And then sometimes you feel like you might have got coverage on the men's field at a certain point. And then at that point, maybe the cameras have shifted onwards on the course and aren't capturing the women at that same point. Something I did think was really cool, though, was a lot of the follow cams for the women's race were female runners themselves. So I think like Christina Randrup and like Anna Loudon were out there capturing footage. So I think that's really cool to like integrate that parity across it too.
Yeah. Well, and like, I mean, I'm biased because Billy's the, one in the weeds with the broadcast. And I thought they did an amazing job, but I loved the split screen that they did for a lot of the race. Just like really trying to do a good job of showing both races and making them equally dynamic. And it's like, that takes a lot of work and a lot of extra like manpower and like having dedicated crews and all that to pull it off. But it looked so good. So it was really fun seeing just like how good the broadcast is getting,
Yeah, and it was so nice. Like anytime we had 2 cameras to show, so they didn't have to show our faces in studio. I was like, yes, please. Like, not me.
Got a beautiful face. Yeah.
But sometimes you want to just sort of like not worry about how you look, right? Like,
and they had the top 10 kind of listed too, and I feel like that's something that people in the chat are always like, what place is this person in? What? And so it was just nice to have the split screen and just constant updates on 10 deep. And I feel like they did a really good job actually covering 10 deep in the women's race throughout the race. Like,
nice.
I noticed like Corinne and Dylan too, they would go as far back as like 15th in the women's race, just with names of people that can come up.
Totally.
So I thought that was really cool
because it's naturally happening in the men's race, because like when you're 15 deep in the men's race, you're by F1 usually. And I really very much appreciated that.
That's cool. Ooh, it was fun when I was in the studio. That's when Ben Gibbard finished from Death Cab for Cutie, which
did you guys play a Death Cab for Cutie song?
Yes,
that would have been so cool. Like as he's finishing,
I know he'd be like, "Wow, I've never heard this before."
I
did use a couple of Death Cab songs for like the social post when I was all clever to myself. But it was fun, and we like pulled him into the studio, and he was like very lucid for having just run 100 miles, and like just like had a great chat with him. And I didn't realize it, but he's been putting into the lottery since 2016. He said
that's so cool.
Wow,
yeah, long time.
It's a long time.
Yeah, and just like massive respect to him for like, he was on the wait list until June 6th is when he got in. And he just like trained hard, like on the belief that he was going to get in. And then,
cool.
Had a good day.
I was
fun to watch.
Amazed. Both the men's and women's champion, Caleb Olson and Abby Hall, their interviews were so lucid and beautiful and eloquent. I was like, how?
I know. So impressed.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. Yeah, it's definitely interesting, the whole gamut. I mean, like you said, Ida, who was struggling even the next day, like, I think just like it's one of those races, like maybe it really is like everything has to align, like I always think like we get a certain number of sort of perfect days in our ultra career, and you see someone like execute a race like Western States and it's like, that was one of your perfect days, like.
And it's so easy to like focus on like little things that went wrong, or like when you have a pretty good day but not a great day. But I think we've talked on the podcast before about like just savoring it whenever you have a good day, because you don't know if you don't know when that next good day is going to come. So just like learning from whatever the little things are on that day, but really celebrating where you're at, I think is valuable.
Yeah. And like, look at how many people trained so hard and then didn't have the day that they wanted or even deserved, and there was a lot of heartbreak out there. And so I think it's just, it's not to diminish the success. It's just to appreciate the success and to like, it really is like everything lining up and then like a little bit of just like good luck and then just sort of like seizing it and going for it,
Totally.
I think there's a lot of beauty in the failure too. Like people who like my heart is broken for Esther who didn't finish, but I think there's also like there's so much beauty in that build that she had, and like returning as one of the favorites and then just having this heartbreak. It's going to make the next one so much sweeter.
I think so too.
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting to see sort of for a lot of people like David Roach, Rod Farvard, Esther, Heather, like a lot of people out there did not have the days
Riley
that they
Brady
wanted.
too.
Riley Brady, Tara Dower, like,
so much heartbreak.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, I think what's interesting too is like it looked up from the outside like Caleb had a perfect day, but as I've consumed content and had a picnic with some friends in Salt Lake City the other day and like heard more from him, I was like, oh, that was actually not a perfect day. You pulled it out, which is great, but like went through a lot of adversity and were just super tough and kind of, from the outside, it looked pretty flawless, but like it was not without its challenges.
Yeah. And that's good to sort of recognize and like makes it, I mean, even more impressive. Not that like anyone would ever win Western States and not have some like huge challenges, but yeah, it's like nice for us all to remember, like, he's smiling and seems really happy every time we saw him, but
he wasn't.
Yeah.
His finish line photos. I screenshotted one and I sent it to our kind of friend group and I was like, looks like Caleb just walked through the valley of the shadow of death.
Oh my God.
I was like, well, I
just
did.
like haunted behind the eyes.
Dead. He's dead behind the eyes.
Let me just hold my baby up. Focus on the baby. Yeah, no, it is crazy. It's I mean, it's such a whirlwind. It's the Super Bowl of trail running. It really does feel like it for us, and
it does.
And yet it still feels small and like a family, and like I love that part of it. It's not UTMB size yet, so you do see a lot of people and like get the chance to hang out with people.
It never can be or will be.
No. Yeah. That's it. That's the number of runners, folks. The number of people watching and supporting them might increase, but yeah.
I'm fine with that. It's a nice little close-knit community, which is pretty special. And I think like I know the lottery takes years and years to get into, but I think it kind of adds to the allure in some ways.
Mm-hmm. The mystique.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome.
And then Leah, you and I are off to Hardrock next week.
Hardrock
this week for me.
Yeah, this week for you. And God bless you, Hilary. I can't imagine.
I don't know. We got home like Monday night, and then I got up early on Tuesday and banged out like a kind of hard like last run. I didn't like run at all last week. I ran 9 miles total. I was on my feet a lot.
Yeah. Stress is stress.
Weird.
I'm on feet. That's actually gonna be good being on your feet.
I know. But like it's so stupid. I was like really proud of my Strava looking really good, and then it just went like
taper time.
Not even taper time. Like we just flatlined, just like full on flatlined.
You're consolidating your training. You're just
Yes.
absorbing it now.
And I actually felt fine on my run yesterday, and like today just went for sort of an easy run, and like gonna just like do some hiking when I get out there to sort of like ramp into Hardrock. But it's just sort of interesting to be at the point of like so many people were coming up to me and being like, "Are you ready for Hardrock? Like, what are you doing for the altitude?" And I'm like, "Well, you're looking at it. Like, what do you think I'm doing? Like, I'm not in Colorado right now. Like, I'll tell you that much."
Well, don't forget the year Claire Gallagher won Western States, she was just trudging around the Arctic like 2 weeks,
That's true.
the 2 weeks before. So
that's true.
There you go.
Thank you. So watch out, Katie Scheid, is what you're saying.
Yes.
I'm just saying you can surprise yourself even when things aren't necessarily perfect on paper.
Yeah,
definitely.
No, and I'm excited. I had like my first crew meeting today, and it's just going to be so much fun. My friend Sana, who ran it last year, and Billy, and my friends Kevin and Natalie are my crew chiefs. And then Emily Hoggood's coming out and pacing me, and it's going to be the best. And
sweet.
Yeah, it's just going to be fun. I think Katie's going to be out there too, so I told her to come add moral support. But yeah,
she's good for that.
Katie Asmith, our co-host.
Yeah,
we're missing. Nice.
Yeah.
What are you wearing for the race, Hilary? You got an outfit planned out?
Sort of. I mean, I've been trying to look at pictures of what people are wearing out there. It seems like it's on the cooler side still, and there's like thunderstorms in the afternoon. So yeah, it's honestly probably going to be like, is actually shout out to Janji, who's also the sponsor of our podcast, but I'm going to wear their 5-inch pace shorts, which I've been hyping up like all season on the pod because I genuinely love them. And so I'm going to be starting the race in those. They also, just while I'm at it, for Janji, they have a new pack out, the Revy 18-liter pack, which they just sent to me and Billy to try out. And it's like designed for commuting and putting a laptop in and having like camera gear in and stuff like that.
That's perfect.
It's actually a pretty sweet pack. So we'll also be taking that to Hardrock with us. But yeah, plug to Janji. Go to their website, get 10% off with the code Trail Network. I genuinely love the pace shorts, and I genuinely am going to be starting Hardrock in them. I have 2 pairs, guys. I have a size small for the beginning of the race, and then I have a medium for later on in the race when I'm super bloated.
Absolutely genius.
That's really smart.
Right. Because like nothing feels worse later in a race when you've got this like stomach full of electrolytes and like all the things.
No.
So I'm actually like, I'm pretty pleased with myself, and I have like shoes in a half size bigger too, so we're just like I have everything geared towards me like slowly, I don't know, dissolving into a puddle, a bloated blob.
That's really smart.
Yeah. But it's like actually that was Kyla from Janji that gave me that tip. She's like, dude, get the size bigger for later in the race. I was like, oh yes,
that's smart. Honestly.
Yeah. So I'm excited. Definitely have to like lay out all my gear because the thunderstorms, like even being up in Vancouver last weekend reminded me, because it was really shitty weather the whole time I was up there, and we got snowed on, and it was just like has not been on my radar for so long with living in California. And it's like, oh, you get so cold when you're wet, and like, you know, like just that.
And that can be a day ender. Like you could be doing your nutrition great, everything could be great, but you mess something up like that and that can be the difference.
Yeah, totally. So it was a good like reminder, just like I need the gloves, I need like the warm like base layers, I need to have like all these things to change into if the weather does go south. So yeah, oh my gosh, I was supposed to pack today, didn't even happen. So I don't know when we're leaving. We're trying to leave tomorrow morning, but I think it might be like later tomorrow night. I don't know.
Agree with that plan. Says the girl who left Auburn at 4 p.m. on Monday.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys are amazing.
Thriving over here. Rach, how's your work schedule? Just to catch up quickly before we sign off.
Oh yeah, I'm on day 2 of full-on anesthesia boot camp. So it's just like completely new environment, learning new stuff, meeting new people, which is, you know, I feel like you'd think at some point as an adult you would stop doing that, but like I'm a new girl again, and it's really fun.
Oh, and Rach, how many
like 9 to 5s? Are you working shift work still? Like, what does it look like?
No, it's like the hours aren't too bad. It's like 8 to 4 or 9 to 5, stuff like that. So, but doing, you know, trainings and kind of getting the access to the electronic medical record, getting tours of the facilities, kind of learning
Hmm.
how things work. So
That's pretty cool.
yeah.
And
How do
shout
you-
out to Rach. Rach went up Mount Timpanogos like 3 days ago, which is one of our highest peaks in the Wasatch, like close to like 11,500 feet in
Oh my gosh,
14
Rach.
miles round trip. And Rachel is, what am I? I'm like 34 weeks pregnant this week. Rachel's like 33 weeks pregnant. So I'm amazed.
Okay, disclosure, I was with my new friend who's an emergency medicine doctor, and the whole time I was like, Liz, like if I went into labor, you could just deliver here, right? And she's like, oh yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh. That
But
would
I
be
mean,
kind of epic.
it was slow and lots of snacks and all of that. But yeah, Leah and we're trying to noodle up some last minute adventures before we get too
We're like, we
far,
need to
but
get
we're
one more thing
close.
in before we pop.
Yeah.
I kind of love it. And I love, like, it's interesting because I feel like, Rachel, when you were like early days pregnant, like it was a lot harder for you to get out. And it feels like it's almost gotten like better as you've gotten along and just like you're
It's
getting out more.
fascinating. Yeah, no, I felt so bad early on. Like I was just in bed all the
Hmm.
time. It's just so not how I thought it would go. So yeah, it's interesting.
But it's just like nice, I think, for people to see like it's not linear, and just because it starts out rough doesn't mean you can't still do stuff. And Leah, like you running around looking like cute as a button at 8 months
So
pregnant,
cute,
with your little
Leah's the
round
cutest little
basketball,
belly.
you know?
Yes.
I know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
But
it's
like,
one day at a time,
Totally.
and day to day is so different too. Like you can feel great one day and feel horrible the next, and you're like, I guess I'm just really walking today.
Rachel, I was going to ask you, do you feel like people at work treat you any differently, or like there's like limitations on what you can, because you're like sort of an interesting position to be in, to be pregnant and like fairly pregnant, but also like kind of interning and residence doctor and just sort of like in this time of like growth in your career that's sort of pivotal to like the next steps in your career. Do you feel
Yeah.
like how do you feel you being pregnant like changes that, or does it?
I feel like for a long time I was able to hide it pretty well. Like I didn't want people to like treat me any differently because of being pregnant, but I feel like I can't hide it anymore. And it's a little bit hard because this is my first impression with a lot of my co-residents and attendings, and I am the extremely pregnant person. And actually one really cool thing is there's 4 people in my class. There's 15 in the class. So basically almost a third of the class is having a baby within the first 4 months of
Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
anesthesia, but I'm the only visibly
Very
pregnant
pregnant
person. But I feel like people have been super kind, and like we were biking from one place to another today to go to some training, and I don't know, I felt like my co-residents were kind of looking out for me, and my program director was like, "Oh, you're biking? Okay." So yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe it's foolish of me, but I do feel like I don't feel like I'm being like treated differently in a bad way, I guess I should say. Maybe like more taken care of or looked after, but not like pitied or
Yeah.
seen as less than.
Did they do
Yeah.
like a flying V around you on the bike today?
No, but I mean, I don't know. One of my co-residents, Craig, he was just biking behind me on his e-bike, and I don't have an e-bike, which I really want.
I want to.
I don't know. I felt like he was kind of like looking out for me, and like I was being really, really slow, and he definitely could have gone faster. So
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
sweet. That's thoughtful. That's not like, making you feel badly for it. That's just like being a bit more considerate, which is nice.
yeah.
Leah, what about you? Do you feel like anything's changed with you being pregnant with like work and
No,
sort of like
it's more like I didn't need to I need to recognize myself that it's reality, and I'm going to have a baby in like 6 weeks. So that part's pretty crazy of like getting my life together.
so
And
soon,
yeah,
dude?
yeah.
Are you feeling like you need to nest? Because I'm feeling like I need to nest a lot.
I was thinking about that. Like I have a lot of insomnia hours these days. And when I'm up with my insomnia, I just think about like all the things I need to do. And the one thing's like, I need to organize this closet. I'm like, I don't need to do that, but it's one of those things. I'm
Set
like,
up the crib.
yeah,
Set up the nursery. Buy diapers.
yeah, all those things. So yeah, I feel honestly like no different at work because it's nice working remote. Nobody like really knows except for my boss and a few others. So that part's been pretty pretty nice and easy, but yeah, it's more of just like the wrapping my own head and life around it. And then Mike might go out to shoot UTMB. We're still figuring out the details and like coordinating family to help me during those, because I think I'll probably be like 2 or 3 weeks postpartum then. So
you can just come live with us.
I know, that's what I'm like, me and Rachel can just like,
you seriously
have our
can.
2-week-olds.
Tyler's like, I got this.
We'll be up in the middle of the night together nursing. It'll be fun.
That would actually be adorable.
I've been loving just like how many people are like offering to help at various stages, like whether that's my friends or sisters and just lots of people. And I love that. I think with my sisters, I've offered a lot of support when they've been in these new parent moments, and it's nice to see the script flip a little bit.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love both of you guys. You're crushing it on every level.
So are you, Hill. Like, so impressed.
Yeah. Try not to get crushed.
Enjoy it.
I literally named all of our group chats for Hardrock, Hardwalk, and that's my theme.
That's perfect. That's
right?
That's a good mantra. Like, I think if I was doing
has that been done before? That is absolutely genius, Hilary.
I know. Maybe that'll be the name of my film. It's a hard walk.
That's good.
It's a really hard walk.
Oh yeah, that's my motto. Here for a good time and a long time.
Well, I'm so excited to follow along next week, Hill. It's going to be amazing,
guys. Yeah, I don't know what our plan is for next week, but we'll try to do something maybe from Silverton.
Yeah,
we'll see what we can wrangle up. But
do another live pod. I love that one,
dude. Rachel, that took us okay. Like, not pictured for everyone that watched our pod last week was the hour it took us to set it up with all the different microphones.
Now you know how to do it.
Well, I don't even know if you do know how to do it, honestly.
I know. And bless Billy's heart, he ended up helping us for like an hour. We had no tripods. So we had the camera stacked on top of a bunch of boxes. It was just like, there was a lot going on behind the scenes.
It was very fun.
Good.
Yes, very fun. But
as a fan of the pod, I loved that episode. More of that, please.
It is different. It's a different energy in person. I do feel like you get to like riff differently. Although I feel like in general, we are getting better at just sort of like doing it over Zoom, but like there's something that you always get about in-person energy, right?
Totally.
But it was a lot of work.
Yeah, we were so sleep deprived. We're all just like, our brains.
Yeah. Glad it worked out. All right, you guys, I love you lots. And thank you to our listeners for being along for the journey. It was actually super fun. I had a bunch of people come up to me in the village during Western States Week and just say that they listened to the pod. And it really means so much to us, you guys. Like, it keeps us going. And it's just really great to hear from you. So thanks for saying hi. Please always do. If you see any of us out on trails or at races or anything, we love to connect with you. And if you have questions or you want us to cover certain things, you can send us a message on our Instagram at the Trail Network Pod, or through Spotify. I think you can now leave comments and messages, which is super fancy. So when we figure out how to read them, we'll get back to you. All right. Until next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
See ya.